Right, I spent ages making a vlog and putting loads of pictures in it and everything. I don't know what I've done, but I've wiped it. So I'm going to jump in with the bones of the story here. Right, for those of you know, for those of you who don't know, it don't matter, you'll get it as you go along. Most history's bollocks anyway, so, but parts of it have some rings of truth. Pebbles in the pond and all that, man. No sooner had the Knights of the First Crusade captured Jerusalem from the Seljuk Turks in 1099 than writers began to swoon over their achievements, inspired by a rousing call by Pope Urban II Clement France 4 years earlier to rescue the Holy Land. These first Mediterranean historians wrote, the Crusaders and their conquest of the Western Mediterranean coast proved that God had smiled upon Western Europe and the worldly authority of Rome. It goes on to, basking in the glory of it. But the armchair historian could be forgiven for thinking, for example, that Jerusalem fell to the Muslims soon before the First Crusade set out to supposedly rescue it. In fact, Jerusalem fell some 250 years earlier. Most striking, perhaps, the central question behind the First Crusade has never really been asked. What happened at the end of the 11th century that made more than 60,000 men head east? If the Pope was powerful enough to be able to unleash a huge force of knights, why had he never done so before? The answer lies far away from Western Europe, where the origins of the Crusades are always set. In fact, the First Crusade was an Eastern project devised and inspired not by Pope Urban II, but by Alexius I of Eastern Rome or Byzantine Empire, which had survived the fall of Rome. There was like an East Rome and a West Rome, weren't there? The East Rome was the Byzantine Empire. They don't tell you fuck all about it. Anyway, I won't go on about it, right, but Reasons Crusades. The Crusades were organised by Western European Christians after centuries of Muslim wars of expansion. Blah 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 blah. Well, they were all knights and that. They make out that they went there to protect the firm Muslim knight brotherhoods and that, but they weren't. They were a big, massive fraternal organisation, and they was setting up the...
So here I'm next to Murcia in Spain. It's a Templar. This is the area where I went to. It's not very far, so to the left side of the square.
It's
they call it the
Basque
Badlands.
That's Portugal,
because,
right?
Clint Eastwood, he made that video about there. It looks very much like Arizona. So, but I don't think it's the only reason they call it the Badlands, because you went filming exactly next to the Templar stuff here. And the Templars are really, they're all over. And this is what I wanted to show you, that they're all over. They even went up to the Ukraine, probably in Africa, everywhere. I mean, they're not like, so a rare species, fighting the horrible king and all that. No, they were quite common, very common. They were everywhere, not rare at all. So here I'm next to Murcia in Spain. It's a Templars stronghold here. It's called the Basilica de Vera Cruz. Cruz, it means the cross, like the true cross. Well, what is the true cross? I mean, is there a difference between the...
Why would they need fortresses? And look how many of them there was. I believe it was the first banking corporations, people who wanted to travel and do business in a town further up the road, instead of carrying the dosh with them and getting robbed, they got a chit off one of these or a cord or whatever, and they got to the place, said da da da, and got the cash.
The true
It was the
true
first bank.
crosses, or the only
And
true...
that's why they were knights, they're police, they were the first police, they were the first powers. No matter how you look at it now, it's so obvious.
cross for them is the Templars cross and not the Normal's cross. That's why they call it Veracruz. So, here in Spain, how's LA? How has it changed from LA, eh?
It's a nice change over here. Over here near Veracruz, the castle of Veracruz.
Spanish countryside. So this is next to...
Everywhere.
So we're staying there with the Ruskies. Spanish flags here.
See, according to good old Wikipedia, the poor fellows, soldier knights, the Knight Solomon, blah 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 blah. 2 fucking knights on the same horse, fucking whatever that means. Right? And so they got up to look after the pilgrims, right? But they got exceptionally rich. I ain't real rich. Look, they started building fucking templaries and commandants all over the place. They were a total military shock troop order. They weren't no monks, yeah. It was like Freemasonry has incorporated the symbols and rituals of several medieval military orders and a number of Masonic bodies since the 18th century at least. This can be seen. So in other words, yeah, they are linked, and that I found other evidence showing that in better detail. The Crusades, which is a rampant time of complete, absolute madness. What were they after? What was it? Why? It weren't just, oh, we want the Holy Land because it's the Holy Land. That wouldn't, there's so many more layers, same as everything else. This is not a bad article, but check everything with a pinch of salt. Right, here's a good article. Well, I'll let you, I'm not going to read it, I'll go through it slowly. Then if you want to read it, you can pause it and look at it. It asks some very interesting questions. It's a well written article, even though it's mainstream shit. But it just does ask some good questions. So I hope I've done it so enough so those who fucking do want to have a deco at it, do so. Because it is good. It's interesting. It asks some interesting questions. Look, these people are all the same people. They went, right, just to fucking set up banks, build castles everywhere. There were no castles in Europe. They built all them templaries everywhere so people could travel and do commerce, not just travel and pay homage and pilgrimage. It was so if you wanted to trade with someone 2,000 miles up road, you go into the bank at your end, you deposit the money, they'd send message via one way or another saying, aye, it's all above board. Then they'd get the goods at the other end. It's how trade worked. It was the first trade. Anyone who can't say that or admit it is a fucking idiot. I'm not joking, it annoys me, the lies we were told at school and all this chivalry, and it's just all shit. They were just a bunch of homos who all pissed into the same pot and like to own a secret little club. Just read this. Saladin became on. He captured them with all the booty, everything. He had loads of them. And they made some bullshit reason why he let him go. He let him go because he's one of them. As it goes on about how they had to change the law for this and change the law for that to accept him. And look, historical accounts of the Templar knighting of Saladin. He was a fucking Templar. I want to read it out to you. I don't want to bore you, but look. Possibly after reflection, Saladin thought it just as well not to mention it, realising that the older generation has its prejudice, which preclude both reason and argument, and on that occasion, it is better to let sleeping dogs lie undisturbed. Most likely, for this same reason, the Knights Templar also kept manuscript records of such event relatively private, such that the historical account did not emerge to the general public until 1785, 450 years after the French persecution order. So that proves that, did they kill them all? Well, no, because 450 years later they're telling you that Saladin was one of them. Further indirect evidence supports that this event occurred. Saladin also gave up his approval to the knighting of his brother's son, a performance conducted with much ceremony before the whole Christian army by no less than a person than Richard the Lionheart. One thing is certain as a matter of historical fact, the original Knights Templar themselves believed and formally documented that the Sultan Saladin had received induction of the knighthood. He was one of them. He was accepted wholly as a Templar brother, revered for upholding its principles in a most exemplary manner. And as you go on, this new brand of chivalry spread from the Arabian Peninsula through the 8th century Muslim Moors of the Iberian Peninsula, covering Spain, Portugal, Andorra and parts of southern France. It was the provincial troubadours from the Arab courts of Andalusia, Spain. The native tongue's fucking Swiss, I think. Who adopted these ideals and famously helped spread the medieval culture of chivalry across Europe. Therefore, authentic Templarism cannot possibly reject nor oppose the very same Muslim chivalry which made substantial contributions to its finest traditions and most inspired humanitarian ideals. They're bigging themselves up there, aren't they? But Saladin and women, special arrangements for Muslims in the Templar Order. They had their own fucking flag, own crest. So all sourced. This ain't no bullshit fucking YouTube fucking crackpot. There you go, it's all there. It's all there, folks.